Welcome to another edition of Fourth and Pain, the only football and pro wrestling show to be hosted by an NFL player and a weight loss champion. Over there is Redskins defensive end Adam Carriker.
What's your name? I'm sorry, I didn't catch you. What's your name?
My name is...
It doesn't matter what your name is, because this is Fourth and Pain.
He's channeling Rocky Maivia today. I like what's happening. My name, by the way, is Chuck Carroll, the weight loss champion and former wrestling announcer. Thanks for joining us. Another episode today, Adam. We are going to be talking about two things: football and football. But before we get to the college variety, because the AP Top 25 recently out, let's talk a little bit about professional football, specifically the Washington Redskins. Let's just start with the simple question, man. You've had an opportunity to watch these games, as have I. How has the team looked to you so far, Adam?
Well, it's still weird to me sitting at home watching the games. But it's interesting because in the preseason, this is going to sound a little maybe off to people, but it really doesn't matter how the team looks. It doesn't matter the wins or the losses, even if you're getting blown out or blowing people out, because if you go 0-4 in the preseason and you make a run during the season, that's all that matters. Likewise, if you go 4-0 and then you start the season off 0-1, nobody's going to remember that 4-0 you had in the preseason. Also, coaches have a different approach during the preseason. They have certain things they want to look at. They have certain plays they want to try. They just want to see how things look. They're trying to get certain things on film to show other coaches, to kind of mislead them. Hey, we're going to do this. Haha, trickery. No, we're not really going to. They're trying to give guys looks that are not going to see the field as much during the season. So how a team looks can be a little bit misleading. I remember many years, in fact, like 3 or 4 in a row, the Colts would go 0-4 every preseason. And then every year they dabble with going undefeated. I believe even one of those years they may have won the Super Bowl. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, my guys are looking good. The team's looking good regardless of the result, positive or negative, because there's ultimately a bigger goal here that's going on, and the coaches are getting accomplished what they want to have done.
Sure, and to piggyback off of that Colts thing, you know, those seasons when the Redskins were just floundering and couldn't seem to get out of their own way or get a W to save their lives, oftentimes during the preseason they would go 3-1 or 4-0, and you would think, hot damn, we got ourselves a contender this year. Yeah, not so much. Speaking with Redskins defensive end Adam Carriker at Adam Carriker 94, the weight loss champion at the Chuck Carroll, and this, the trifecta of plugs at Fourth and Pain. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, college football, the AP Top 25. But sticking with the pros for right now, the Redskins, they break camp recently. Now they're back at Redskins Park in Ashburn. My question to you is this. We're not quite at the regular season and training camp is behind us. So right now we're kind of in preseason purgatory. What is the difference between what's going on now and what happened in Richmond at training camp?
It's interesting because when training camp so-called breaks, really the only difference is you no longer have to stay in Richmond this year, or in previous years when we were here in Ashburn, no longer had to stay at the hotel. You can now stay at home. You can see your family more. And you're not there from 7:30 in the morning to 10:30 at night. It's not an all-day affair. There's no curfew. Nobody's coming to your door or your house to make sure you're in bed. Basically, practices are the same. They're the same length. They're the same difficulty. But you're done around 4:30 as opposed to 10:30. So you get to see your family a little bit more. What happens a lot of times is guys who've never been through this before, they let up during this time because, training camp's over. We don't play games for a while. We can kind of cruise. And a lot of guys end up getting cut because they don't realize how important this time is because coaches are still judging and evaluating just because training camp is over.
Interesting. Is it a little bit easier now for the veterans, I suppose, because they do get the opportunity to go back and see their family? And then the flip side to that is if you're a rookie, like you just said, and you haven't gone through this and you think that you can ease up on that gas pedal a little bit, is it tempting to go out and kind of act a fool as now you finally have an opportunity to paint the town as an NFL player and you're back in your home city?
Well, it is very tempting, and it's interesting because training camp's over, the mindset kind of switches and changes, but like I said, the coach's mindset does not switch and change. So a lot of the guys, they approach it differently. As a veteran, it's just nice to see your family again. I'll tell you, my middle child will not be here had we not had this time of year. So that worked out well for Addison and my wife and I, but it's just good to be home, spend some more time with the family, as opposed to having to be locked away and having a curfew every night. Someone not. I hate the curfew. I go to bed at like 10:30 every night. Curfew's at 11. They're waking me up to make sure I'm in my room. It drove me nuts. And in fact, it's a couple times when I didn't go to bed on time, I just sit there and I'd wait, without any clothes on. And as soon as our weight coach Chad Englehart would knock on the door, I'd open the door and just be there in my birthday suit just to freak him out. And after a while, he wouldn't even come to my door and knock on anymore.
Outstanding. Oh, God, poor Chad. 4th and Payne.
Chad was on the show, if you remember, a couple of months ago.
He was, man. And we got to the bottom
story.
line. You do, in fact, have the largest arms on the D-line. And we've got pictures to prove it. How about that? Adam Carriker, Chuck Carroll, 4th and Payne transitioning now like we said we would. The college football season right around the corner. Won't even make it out of the month of August before that kicks off. And the AP Top 25, the first one of the year, is out. Lo and behold, at number 1 is Alabama. At number 2 is Ohio State. You've had an opportunity to look at this. What are your initial thoughts? And then let's have some fun and predict who's going to be in the title game this year.
Well, as I look at the top 10, you got Oregon, Stanford, Georgia, South Carolina, A&M, Clemson, Louisville, Florida. You got 5 SEC teams. I mean, good Lord almighty. The SEC, either they're just dominating the earth when it comes to college football, or we're severely overrating these people. And I got to be honest, I hate the SEC. I hate them with a passion. I hate Alabama. I was raised to hate Alabama. But they've frankly been kicking everyone's butt lately. But I think that's going to come back to bite them this year because these teams all got to play each other.
Right. And
I think in the end, they're all going to give each other 2 losses or more. And I also hate Alabama. So there's no SEC teams in my national title game. Just to drop a little early hint. The other team I care about, which is Nebraska, is rated 18th. That seems about right to me. I think they're going to climb a little bit higher than that. I think it's going to be Nebraska, Ohio State in the national title game, and they embarrassed us in Columbus last year. We were embarrassed in the Big Ten title game last year to Wisconsin, and I think that's the reason we're going to beat a team that might have a little bit more talent than us, and we're going to be the Big Ten champs. Another little hint, Ohio State is also not in my national title game. Number 1 and 2 preseason, not in my national title game.
Interesting. I will tell you this. I think that Nebraska's going to have to shore up that defense quite a bit to be a BCS contender this year.
Just a little.
And I think that Ohio State, now off of probation this year, I will say this, they are in my national title game. I think that they are definitely going to be playing with a chip on their shoulder. They should have been there last year. This year, no probation. They are good to go. So they go 12-0 last year. I have them in the national title game. And here's what pains me, Adam. Until somebody or some other team comes up to prove otherwise to me, they're going to be facing Alabama again. This is a team that is just entirely too good, and I can't stand the team. I see you shaking your head. Believe me, I'm shaking mine as well, and it pains me to say this, but I just don't see anybody else that's going to be able to compete with Alabama or Ohio State this year. And as long as we're talking about the homer teams, you got a chance to talk about Nebraska a little bit. I want to slide down this list all the way down to the 14th spot, and Notre Dame, they would be ranked higher if Tommy Rees weren't under center. That whole Everett Golson thing, that is just a real dagger for the Irish. Otherwise, they would have been back in that title game.
Well, the other reason they would be ranked higher is if they hadn't lost by 89,000 points the last time they stepped foot on a football field.
Yeah,
that would have helped a little too.
Yeah, well,
all right. Well, I teased who my teams were. Let me actually tell who they are.
By all means.
It's interesting. Well, it's interesting. Last year, the team who won the national championship, Alabama, had Ohio State not been on probation, would have never even been in the title game because it would have been Ohio State and Notre Dame played for the national title game. So that's just an interesting little nugget from last year. To me, Alabama, they got to play LSU. They got to go to A&M. They're going to have to play the Georgia, South Carolina, Florida in the SEC title game. They got Va Tech also in their non-conference. They're going to be knocked out. I look at a team like Ohio State who's going to lose to Nebraska in the Big Ten title game. They're going to be knocked out. I got Oregon beating Stanford. And I don't know if they have much other competition in the Pac-12. They're going to win the Pac-12, go undefeated, maybe one loss. They're going to get in. I've got Louisville who plays absolutely nobody, who has an embarrassing schedule. And it's not the players' fault. They got to play who they got to play. They're going to be favored by double digits every game this year. The only team that can even challenge them is Cincinnati. And who is Cincinnati? Don't they just play basketball? So I've got Oregon with one loss or undefeated versus an undefeated Louisville team, and they're going to get in simply because they're undefeated, and the SEC is going to beat themselves up.
Wow. Ballsy. Look at that. Louisville. I think Louisville's strength of schedule is just, it's going to hurt them. I think
but
that
they're
even
going to go undefeated, and they beat Florida last year. They beat Florida in the Sugar Bowl. That's going to help them. People are going to carry that over.
Even if they do go undefeated, man, that strength of schedule is going to be a dagger, and you're going to be looking at a very strong one-loss SEC team that should be in that title game ahead of them. I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen.
We'll see.
All right. With anything, don't you go anywhere. College football around the corner, but so too is more Fourth and Pain.
Adam Carriker, number 94, Redskins defensive end. Largest arms on the D-line here with your pumping iron tip of the week. There are certain muscle groups such as your pecs, your shoulders, your bis, your tris. They respond to 3 sets of 10, 4 sets of 6. There are certain muscle groups such as your calves, your abs, your forearms, and your glutes. They will not respond to this. Think about it. Your glutes are the number one muscle you use when you're walking. You take thousands of steps every day. You use your glutes when you're squatting and lunging, but if you're going to specifically target the glutes, you got to do at least 20 reps or more. That is a minimum if you want to target the glutes. Remember, life may not be the party we all hoped it would be, but we're here, so we might as well dance. You're welcome.